18th. However, seeing how this is a public hearing, it's been noticed. If anyone's here would like to make public hearing on this item tonight, I will allow it, and then we'll keep the public hearing open for the next meeting. Is anyone here to make comment on that? Okay, so I'll move on to the next item. This is a public hearing for the Utah County General Plan Amendment from natural open space and light industrial to office warehouse, and rezone from agricultural to office warehouse located at approximately 800 East Saratoga Road. Richard Nelson is applicant. Planning Director David Stroud is going to present this for us.
Members of the commission, this is a request tonight on behalf of Utah County. They have made an application to rezone property. They own a large chunk of property down along the river, down by the RC park, that they would come tonight to the first step to rezone, to request a recommendation to the city council to rezone the property and change the general plan on the property. The property is approximately 800 East Saratoga Road. Current zoning on the property is agriculture, which is typically just a holding zone for, property in the first community of the city. They would like to amend the general plan from natural open space and light industrial to office warehouse, and then rezone the property from agriculture to office warehouse. Just a couple of graphics here, just to identify the property on the current general plan map. Again, that would go from natural open space and light industrial to office warehouse. And then the rezone would go from agriculture to office warehouse. The purpose of this, and the applicant is here tonight, he can get up if you have any questions as well and expand on that, is the intent is to, in the near future, provide location for city services, or county services for North County residents, sheriff's office, could be at recorders functions, things like that. But basically satellite offices, what's in Provo, up in the north part of the county, to provide easier access to the North County residents. There's not a concept plan at this time. By code, a concept plan is not required. Certainly, at times one is certainly helpful, but at this point, since the county just knows at some point we're going to put services there, that right now the first step is just to seek the rezone of the property. So in the recommendation, staff recommends approval with the findings and conditions of the staff report. And of course, you then have the option to continue or deny the request. And Richard Nielsen is here tonight.
Okay. Would Commissioner Nielsen like to come up and join us? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Right there, Richard.
You can sit there if you like.
Richard Nielsen.
There you go.
Richard Nielsen, Public Works Director for Utah County. Mr. Stroud has explained what we're looking at doing. The county has owned about half of this ground for a number of years, about 30 acres or so. About 4 or 5 years ago, picked up another 32 acres from UDOT. The idea would be to have satellite functions of all county offices out here in the north end of the county. Hopefully try to alleviate some of the need to drive to Provo for those different functions. We do currently have a health department satellite office in American Fork in a leased building. The idea that would move out here to this campus as well. We are just starting the process with an architecture firm to do a master plan for this campus. That'll take place over the next several months, and we'll be working with the city as well as we do that plan.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'll open it up for public comment on this item. And so anyone that has comments can come up to the podium. Please keep your comments to about 3 minutes. No repeat comments, and the mic is open.
Shelley Barch, do you want my address too?
Yeah.
313 West Strawberry Place, Saratoga Springs. So a couple of questions and concerns on this is I don't see that we're keeping that natural open space. We have that already. I really don't want that zone to agriculture where they could then turn that into other or even future office space. That should be maintained as that natural open space. We already have that. So zoning that, then letting them use that as their open space for the office warehouse seems counterproductive. The other comment I have on that is the actual overall plan, because this doesn't have a plan associated with it yet. One of the concerns we had when we were talking about this quite a while ago is the potential for I'm going to call it homeless invasion. along the rivers like they have in some of the areas in Salt Lake as they bring some of those health services out from American Fork. And so I think that that's something that we need to consider as a city before we look at this rezone when we don't actually know what they're going to be bringing out here. Thank you.
Any other public comment? I'll close the public comment at this time. So we have a couple of questions about leaving the natural open space and then what services that might bring homeless people out to this area.
Of course, the general plan does have that part of that property as, or future land use as natural open space. Obviously, the general plan land use map is not a static document, so the property owner does have the right to request a change to that. Obviously, to get what they want, we do like to see that zone and general plan map coincide. And so they're exercising their right to request that change to the natural open space. We do have the park facility down there, RC Park. Part of this property you can see does wrap around RC Park, which I suspect, or I would like to see that hopefully incorporate into the park facility itself. I don't know how much county functions you could actually put along that property along RC to the west of RC Park. But yeah, bottom line, yeah, it is pegged right now in the general plan for natural open space. But of course, they do have the right to request a change to that, and they are exercising that right.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just going to point out that the RC Park, both where the airplane portion is and the helicopter portion that's on the east side of the trail, were both granted to the city from the county several years ago at no cost.
Okay.
As far as the uses go, we're aware that those functions could. We've had discussion with city management on that. Of course, any rezone does a development agreement with the applicant and the city council is entered into. And that's certainly, and of course, planning commission, you don't get involved obviously with the development agreement stage, but that is something that we will look at in the development agreement.
All right. What about homeless encampments? How can the city prevent that whole area from turning into a homeless encampment? Like I've seen on other parts of Jordan River, especially.
Good question. They could do it now. Certainly certain county functions may make that type of population gravitate towards that area. And it's really a tough question to really give you a solid answer on.
I mean, in the short term, one thing we don't have is public transportation. So that might help a little bit, but that's not going to help forever. Can no camping ordinances prevent that? Because if they're camping, they can be removed.
I would suspect so, and I'm just not clear. I don't know if we have anything that's specific to it in our city code right now. Certainly not in Title 19.
What I'll do now is turn this over to the commission for comments, and it looks like Commissioner Ryan, you can go first.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chair. So I just have a quick follow-up question to some of the concerns that have been raised. Is there any evidence currently at the American Fork location of homelessness encampments or folks gathering?
We have not had anything there. The site is the old Savage Brothers building there on 500 East is where our health department is currently at. We don't provide homeless services through the health department. That's handled through other agencies that are not county agencies. So we typically don't have a lot of homeless issues there. There are some in our downtown Provo campus with the services that are offered through Wasatch Behavioral Health for drug and alcohol abuse treatment. So there are some there. Whether that function would be on this site, I don't know. It definitely is a possibility, but it is something we see a little bit in downtown Provo.
Excellent. Do you want me I have a couple more questions that aren't related, but okay. So I think you had mentioned this, Mr. Nielsen, but the part on the east side of the trail, that's the helicopter, that sort of chunk that's not highlighted. Is that correct? Okay. And then on the west side, the property and the rezone kind of envelops the RC area. And I'm guessing that it may be very early in the process for you to give us some idea of what may happen with that area. But if you have any general insight, I would be appreciative.
Yeah, but honestly, the outline of what you see in the light blue is all of the county-owned property. We don't have any desire to do anything on the property west of the RC Park between there and the river. We would anticipate that staying as is.
Excellent. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Barton.
So I just have a couple comments and questions really fast. I feel like that homelessness could because of the location and the surroundings could be issue here. I don't think it is an AF because of the location and because all those services are not offered. So I don't feel like looking at AF is a good indicator of that coming or not. I think probably obviously is a better way to look at that because they do have some more of those services. And I am a little nervous just saying to go ahead with it with not knowing exactly what's coming in. I think it's I don't know. I get nervous not knowing. I mean, I don't know if everybody feels the same way as I do, but the homelessness thing is a concern because it does come with things like this. And since we don't know what's coming, but I think we can assume a lot of the stuff that's coming, which is great. Like I think some stuff like that in Northern Utah County would be great, but not knowing exactly, I'm not super comfortable approving, a change just because of that. Does the county have other property in other Northern Utah County cities, or is it just this big enough to accommodate what you want to do?
Yeah, we don't have any large parcels of ground anywhere else in the north end of the county other than like
I assume because we have that, we have that land here.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess those are my things. I think it is a concern. We can't look at American Fork because it's completely different type of demographic and then not demographic. Kind of like the land area use is different, right? So that's all I have. It makes me nervous.
One thing I should mention too is that through this process, what the city will obtain and the applicant is working with Jeremy Lapp and the Public Works Director. I'm not sure on the exact details of it, but it would be the property would be obtained at some point by the city for the expansion or the extension of the Pony Express as it comes across the river. The realignment of Pony Express would be involved in this part of the project. That would be part of that development agreement with City Council. And I know, Richard, if you can, I saw the emails even back and forth with Jeremy, but the mechanism of how the city is going to obtain that property, if you could.
We do have an interlocal agreement we've been working on between the county and the city that would address the right of way for Pony Express. It's kind of the southeast corner of that parcel up against where it says medium density residential. That is 2 or 3 acres. I don't remember exactly what that entails, but it takes a portion of that corner of the property for the right of way for the new roadway. In that interlocal agreement, it also addresses I'll say it's 800 West. I don't know what the exact coordinate is, but the future north-south road that would go along the east boundary of the county property. That right of way is also part of that interlocal agreement that's being worked on with Jeremy.
We'll go Commissioner Kilgore and then back to Commissioner Barton.
I was wondering, how does the city benefit in any particular way, any financial or any other way?
I believe with, county property, I don't believe there's any taxes that come back to the city. So if I'm wrong, someone can correct me on that, but I believe that's the standard practice there as a government owned property. Certainly, the benefit of, there are city services provided to the residents. There, could be secondary effects. You're bringing the public into the city, shopping, eating, whatnot, spending money in the city. Certainly that's a component of it as well.
Okay. I was wondering, so we're changing the light industrial zone. How many more light industrial zones do we have left?
We only have the light industrial designation on the general plan. As you're aware of, we're actually in the process now. We just awarded the contract to the consultant GSBS at the previous city council meeting to now do our general plan rewrite. And so the general plan, as it was approved in July of 2017 and our code now there are some areas where they didn't mesh together. And so we're looking at some changes to what's light industrial. Can we change other things to light industrial? Are we going to create a light industrial zone? These are all things we're just in discussion with staff right now at this moment.
Okay, so I was wondering if there's like an optimal number for light industrial zone acreage or something like that, and whether the city is close to it or do we not have enough or do we have too much? But I guess we don't know until.
Yeah, I mean, as a young city right now, as far as true light industrial developments, we don't have much.
Yeah, I mean, I know we don't have much in the actual use of it, but I just wonder if by eliminating or piecemeal changing the zones, rezoning them, if we're going to find ourselves someday, maybe 5-10 years down the road, it's like, oh, where's all our light industrial? We just kind of.
Well, and the nature of the zone the applicant's requesting of office warehouse could be construed to be a light industrial type zone. I mean, the uses that you do see in those types of zones are somewhat light industrial.
Okay. Any job opportunities for local residents? Any job opportunities for local residents, for city residents?
You'd have to pose that to the applicant about employment numbers.
Yeah.
I would assume with the expanded areas of county services that would entail additional employees. I couldn't tell you a number that would equate to, but I would assume there would be employment opportunities that I doubt they'd be able to do it with the staff they currently have in Provo.
Okay. And also, any idea what the anticipated traffic is?
Not at this point, where we're just starting the master plan of the site. That'll kind of give us a better idea of what we think the volume of traffic would be, the uses, square footage, timing of when we'd build different things like that. So really don't have a good answer for you at this point.
Well, I guess, so I'm done with my questions, but as far as my comments, I agree with Commissioner Barton's comments in that I know that a zoning request is not a rezoning request, does not require a community plan, but because of the nature of this particular request, this application where I make a substantial change things in that area, we're losing potentially losing the open space designation, the fact that there could be a homeless issue, but we don't know. And also we don't know how we would mitigate such a problem. So I would like to see a few more of those unknowns, just at least an outline. Do we have an ability somehow to, like what was suggested, no camping type of thing? Do we actually have the right or the ability to do that? And if so, can we enforce it? And if it's on county land, do we have the right to enforce it? So there's just so many unknowns that I just feel like maybe at least something like a community plan or some additional answers to those kinds of questions would make me feel a lot more comfortable about making such a rezone. So anyway, that's my personal comment.
And just to make a quick comment, as far as this goes, this wouldn't qualify for a community plan. It's not in the PC zone, and you'd have to have at least 500 acres as well for that.
Well, again, I just feel like it's too many unknowns, and anyway, made my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Barton.
Commissioner Kilgore, it kind of touched on what I was going to say again. My thing, and it might be more of a discussion more than a question, but I don't see any advantages of doing it without a little bit more information. And there could be some, and we can talk about that if we need to, but I don't see any real reason to do something unless we have it doesn't, I guess, need to be the entire thing, but just some idea of exactly what could be happening is what I was thinking. But it was the same thing that you were saying. So I'm good. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner Barton. Commissioner Wagstaff, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah. So I had three things. Two of them kind of been addressed. The first one was any type of plan or a concept plan, even just a rough, but that's already been talked about a couple of times. The other question I had was the Pony Express extension, which it sounds like that's been addressed as well. I guess the one thing that hasn't really been addressed is that the sliver on the west side, is Utah County planning on maintaining that little bit of open space on the left side of the current open space, or should that be deeded to the city? Because I just don't want that to get forgotten and not maintained right there along the river.
I obviously can't answer for the county commission, but I would think the county would be favorable to looking at deeding that to the city.
Okay, I don't really see any reason why the county would want to have the liability of maintaining that little section, but I don't know if the city really wants to take it over either. So I don't want it to be left in limbo and no one managing that strip of rather not very usable land.
Yep.
That's everything though. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Wagstaff. Any other comments from the commission? Commissioner McConkey.
I appreciate that question from Commissioner Wagstaff because I'll be honest with you that kind of helps my comfort zone a bit if that was maintained. Most of my other questions have been asked. I was really interested to find out what the purpose of this particular piece of land. Saratoga Springs doesn't have a lot of land as opposed to some adjacent cities that have plenty. And so, every piece of land that we alter, that we use is trying to be careful with that because we just don't have a lot here. So certainly looking at this, understanding what the benefit to the city would be and how it would improve the community is certainly a question in my mind. I didn't know that that the flight park and those pieces of land were given to the city, which is very much appreciated by a
Inlet
lot
Park
of us
was
that
actually
enjoy
part of
that.
As well.
Pardon me?
Inlet Park was actually part of that as well.
Okay. Well, and I like fishing in Inlet Park. So, so we appreciate that. What benefits come to Saratoga Springs by having this rezoned and then having what the county envisions coming onto this land?
I think that the biggest thing is the convenience for your residents as well as the residents of the other North County cities, having those county services close at hand and available to them without having to drive to Provo to avail themselves of those services. I think that's the primary thing.
Okay. And can you state again what the anticipated services that would be available there would be?
So basically anything that's in the county offices in Provo right now. So that'd be the recorder's office, the treasurer, the assessor's office, HR, the county attorney's office, any of those. And then also the health department. With the health department, what I would anticipate, what we've talked a little bit about it with the county, we have a joint use building in Payson with Wasatch Behavioral Health. I would anticipate we'd have a similar function like that where those two entities are combined in the same building on this campus. We would have a small public works site where we have the trail system out here on the north end of the county that we maintain. We'd also have a sheriff's substation that would help with probably have some holding cells in it to where if they needed to book someone in and book them out, they don't have to drive to Spanish Fort to the jail to do that. They can do it here. That would be a benefit to your own police department as well as the other agencies here in the north end of the county.
That's interesting. So what, as far as the number of visitors maybe per day on average that visit the current county, do you have any idea? What, are we talking like 50 people a day? Are we talking a couple hundred? What's the other question is, do we anticipate how many, once this is developed in the way that the county envisions, do we know how many employees would be located here? Just given what
I can give you just my best guess. I don't have hard numbers for the Provo campus. I would say that on average, there's probably 400 to 500 people a day that visit that campus. The idea that this would be a satellite campus, I would see that being significantly reduced, maybe on the order of 20%, 25%, somewhere in there. And probably similar with the number of employees, it would be a much reduced number. There's about 400 employees on the Provo campus right now. So I think you'd be in that, 15 to 20% of those on this campus. So.
Okay. So in my mind, I'm kind of running some numbers here as far as, the fringe benefit of to the city, people spending money here, being employed here close by and so forth. Also maintaining some integrity of the open space. I'm not feeling as opposed as I was when I was reading through this, looking at all that. As far as the homelessness that came up, in my opinion, I feel like we're going to have to deal with it eventually anyway. We want to set ourselves up for success. But eventually it's coming. We're just part of the whole Wasatch Front. And just by nature of living by or having the river that runs, along the city, it's simply just going to be part of that. I certainly am not interested in creating an environment where that would become a perpetual and eternal problem. But I think it's not something that that should prevent an opportunity that would benefit the city, both directly and indirectly. But those are my thoughts. That makes sense.
Thank you, Commissioner McConkey. Commissioner Kilgore.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear. I'm not opposed to the services and the kinds of, and also same with the homeless. I understand that those are things that could happen. I guess my concern is just that we don't know enough at this point. And so I wish we, so if there's a homeless problem, is there a way for us to address it some way? Not necessarily to prevent it, not necessarily to make it go away, but somehow to just address it. So I would like those kinds of questions answered before we go ahead and make a zoning change, as opposed, but I'm not against the kinds of services. I think any kind of employment, that kind of employment would be really great. It's a clean industry, and it helps people. More people brought to the city for those kinds of services, I think is a good thing for the city. So all that I actually agree with and am in favor of. I just wish we just had more answers. And so I guess that's where my concern is.
Mr. Chair, if I could just jump in here for a second, just a couple of comments. And going back to a concept plan, certainly more information is always beneficial. There's no argument there. The code does not require the concept plan. And concept plans are non-binding. If you recall the North Shore Commerce Center rezone you saw not long ago, the 3 office warehouse buildings, that rezone was approved, but the concept plan, again, non-binding, they could come back in with anything now that matches the office warehouse zone. It doesn't have to be those 3 buildings. So yes, the concept plan is great to see. It gives you a chance to say what could go there. Certainly if the county had a more detailed concept plan or maybe even a bubble diagram or something, that would give you an idea. But typically in my experience here at the city council, the council has not made concept plans binding in a development agreement. They basically do the rezone. I've seen the council, had the experience with the council where they do some additional zoning through the development agreement, maybe restriction of uses, that type of thing, building height. But I have not seen them actually tie a concept plan in a development agreement. Certainly it could happen. I assume it could. I have not seen it done. But the concept plan just gives you a potential idea based on what the zone would allow. Not trying to sway either way, just to point out that, again, it's a non-binding document. It's just an idea.
Commissioner Anderson.
I think if it was any other location except on the river, which is one of the things that are unique to the city and that feature within our city, I think it'd be easier. And I wonder if maybe there's even a middle ground where you say, yeah, maybe we do rezone part of that to office warehouse, but to rezone all of it and give them that flexibility to move the goalposts and put whatever they want there. I just wonder if there is maybe a middle ground where you say, yeah, we want to preserve the open space, but there is a piece of that we would rezone, not all of it to office warehouse, but part of it. But like you said, Director Stroud, more information is always helpful.
It's certainly that's a great comment. Why would the property around the RC park need to be office warehouse? It doesn't. You can certainly, depend on what direction you go, if you do make a recommendation, you can certainly make a recommendation to the city council that great office warehouse on, the usable portion of it, but those areas around the park, keep it, we recommend to keep the natural open space. The door is kind of wide open for, if you don't continue it, what your recommendation could contain.
I just think we owe it to the city and the residents to make the most out of this river feature that we have, which is unique to us and no one else except Lehigh and Bluffdale.
Commissioner McConkey.
So
My finger's not hot enough or something.
There you go. Thank you. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but David, if you could kind of give us some thoughts on worst case scenarios, if it were to remain as is, best and worst case, I guess, as opposed to changing. So if this remains, so it's currently agricultural, right? And light industrial, correct?
Well, and you probably look at primarily the current zone. Current zone of probably is agriculture. Well, what does agriculture allow? You can build a house every 5 acres. Is that the best use of the property? No.
So certainly it would be smart to rezone it to something.
Right. Certainly, obviously landowners want the highest and best use of the property. I mean, most of the ground you see that's developed now in the city at some point was agriculture, most likely at some point. If it goes to office warehouse, certainly whatever the office warehouse zone permits would be permitted unless the council, through the development agreement, restricts certain uses. They've done that in the past. Office warehouse zone up on Redwood, they agreed to rezone office warehouse, but they said no auto uses, no gas stations, no auto repair. Certainly they could still do that on this property through the development agreement.
Okay. That answers my question. Thanks.
Okay. I see this as a kind of, I'm mixed on this. I think this could be a great potential for the city. Having additional employment here and additional daytime numbers will definitely help us. At least it's not a high development or a high density development. I kind of am leaning towards kind of splitting this up and having that western side of the unusable area, maybe leaving that natural open space. I think I could go for that. And that's all I have. And I'll open this up for a motion.
Mr. Chair, could I make one more comment?
Yes, you may.
Just looking at the area there from on the northern parcels, the westerly line of that would, if you'd extend that down towards where the helicopter RC park is, there's kind of a funny little shape between there and the trail. Get right in there. Yep, you got it. I don't anticipate any uses that the county would anticipate in there, and I don't see any reason why that could not stay open space as well.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
Commissioner McConkey, go ahead.
Make the motion. I move to recommend the city council approval of the Utah County request to amend the general plan land map from natural open space and light industrial to office warehouse and rezone from agricultural to office warehouse on the 68.97 acres at 800 East Saratoga Road as outlined in Exhibit 1 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated October 20th, 2021, with an added condition that the west side,
As indicated, you could probably go by that route.
as indicated. So, yeah, so everything west of that line that was drawn remain as open space. And the property that runs along the river that runs along the river on the west side of that, is that the RC park?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a motion from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Ryan. Do you have a question on the motion?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner.
And
Pardon?
I guess I just don't agree with that. And so I mean, I obviously can vote against it, but could we do the continuance? So we can say, hey, let's get some more information. Let's maybe
Well, we
talk
have
to our
a-
patrons.
We have a motion, and so we need to
That's what I'm
vote
wondering,
on.
how do I do?
So we
do have
need to
wait
vote
do
on the
that?
motion, and
Yes.
after we vote on the
And
motion,
then we can restate it
if it fails, correct.
Okay.
Okay, so,
that's what I was wondering.
all right. So we have a motion before us, and so I'll go ahead and all those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Hey,
Okay,
Just for
so
the-
we're gonna need to do a count because I'm not sure.
Do
All
a
right,
roll
so-
call with Josh, yes.
Right. Commissioner McConkey, yay or nay?
Yay.
Commissioner Barton,
Nay.
Commissioner Anderson,
Nay.
Commissioner Cunningham, yay. Commissioner Kilgore,
Nay.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Yay.
Okay, and then Commissioner Ryan.
Yay.
Okay, so that looks like 4-3, so that passes. All right, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, need to just shut off mics here. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public hearing for Timpanogos Logistics Center, general plan amendment from regional commercial to office warehouse and rezone from a regional commercial to office warehouse located at approximately 2500 North Woodward Road. Reed Hart is the applicant. Planning Director David Stroud is going to present this.
Members of the commission, this is a request also for rezone. Now to preface comments, speaking with the applicant today, they have agreed to move this item to November 18, the next planning commission. The purpose of that is we now have a scheduled variance hearing on that property on November 18, which would of course be fall before the planning commission. So we thought it'd be beneficial that what's known with the variance, that information be provided to you to help you make your decision. Now with that, Mr. Chair, you have a couple of different things you can do. You can ask for public comment tonight and then continue the item to the 18th at the request of the applicant and staff. Or you could choose to completely continue the item. It's really kind of the direction you want to proceed. I do believe there probably is some public here to make a comment, whether they can make it tonight or if they'd be comfortable making it waiting until November 18th at the next meeting, can certainly go that direction as well.
Okay, well, since how this is a public hearing and it's been noticed, I'm going to allow anyone here to make comment on this item.
Okay, if that's the case, then I'll go through the presentation for the comment. This request is for a rezone and general plan amendment on 2500 North Road approximately. Reed Hart with Arco Design Build is the applicant. Just again, some maps. The property is outlined there in blue, the red regional commercial. This was rezoned by the council, probably 33 and a half years ago, to regional commercial. The west half, as you see, is currently zoned, excuse me, let me backtrack. This is the general plan. General plan, regional commercial.
Did you say 33 years or 3 years?
3 to 3.5 years ago, sorry. General plan, excuse me. West side of the property, it's one parcel. West side of the property is currently in the general plan as office warehouse. East side is currently regional commercial, which then does coincide with the current zones on the property of office warehouse and regional commercial. The applicant has come before you tonight to get a recommendation to the council, or again, continuation if that's where direction you go on the regional commercial property, to change that from in the general plan from regional commercial to regional commercial, received office warehouse, and then zone from regional commercial to office warehouse for the purpose of building what's termed as a logistics center right now, but would be the type of structure you see in the office warehouse zone. This again, conceptually non-binding, but this is the concept plan the applicant's working with right now. It's about a 300,000 square foot building. Elevations you see here. Again, to build this, certainly there are challenges to the site. That is part of the reason for the future variance hearing on November 18. To get this structure to fit that property, the applicant most likely does need those variances granted. Certainly, the property could be developed other ways, not necessarily. Obviously, the size of the building you build there is going to determine how you work the site. You know, certainly the site could be developed with pads. That's obviously not the intent of the applicant right now. This is the product they would like to put on that property. But the meat of the discussion tonight is to do that structure, as you see there, would need the office warehouse zone on that east half of the property. And so staff, our recommendation would be to continue to November 18. And of course, you could also recommend approval or recommend denial.
Okay. Would the applicant like to add anything or wait?
It's working out.
Yeah, make sure you state your name for the record and address. Your
Okay.
business address is fine.
Okay, so my name is Chris Quinn. Business address is 1375 South, 500 East in American Fork. Sorry, almost forgot there.
Good enough.
And so I guess just to add a few things here, you see the two zones. We've actually been working on this parcel for about 9 months now. This is not our first concept site plan. Originally, we did try to put some things on that regional commercial. The big struggle with the regional commercial is the access. We talked to convenience stores, we talked to fitness centers, people that were interested in having a commercial plat. And the biggest hangup with finding enough of that site is that there's not very good access to the site. In the future, there are planned lighted intersections for that site, but they require cooperation with the neighbor to the north and to the south. We've made really good progress on the south with Alpine School District. They're actually really excited about the new plan that you saw previously. But with only one access point to this property, regional commercial, it's a 17-acre parcel, is pretty difficult. Convenience stores aren't really interested in that. Fitness centers, people like that, they want people to be able to get onto the site to get their services. So that's kind of what's pushed us to the office warehouse rezone. The other thing is we have actually held 2 neighborhood meetings. We held one back, I think in March, I believe, maybe April. And the biggest concern that we experienced in that first meeting was that you have all these neighbors you can see on the west side of the property, and they have a beautiful view when they face east. And so their biggest fear is that in this office warehouse zone, which already butts up to their property, that we were going to throw up a 35-foot wall and they'd never see the mountains again. So I would just add that a benefit to making this whole thing office warehouse is that on a large format building like this, we're going to have to excavate down about 32 feet, which is pretty much the entirety of the height of the building. So we do feel like it's a win for the community. We feel like it's a real win for the neighbors because they'll just look right over the top of our building and still maintain their eastward view of the mountains. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have, but.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open this up for public comment for all those who are here to make comment. Try to keep it to 3 minutes and no repeat comments. The mic is open.
Shelley Barch, 313 West Strawberry Place. I actually attended the second of the 2 neighborhood meetings. I found out about that and was able to attend. I would say the majority of the people that were there were very grateful that they were going to drop that site down. And I realized that the 30-foot wall in the back gives us some logistical problems, and that's the variance hearing. I grew up in an area where we had homes like this and a Home Depot was down below, very similar kind of situation. And the neighbors don't even know that the Home Depot is there. So we have quite a few trees and other things too, because it's Northern California, but nonetheless, having that site dropped substantially like that is fantastic. I know that there are some concerns with the office warehouse and, the trucks as they come in, and they don't want them to be idling and things like that. But again, having that dropped down, I think will mitigate a lot of that. I think that the applicant is right with the access points. Hopefully they can get with the north neighbor and maybe even make a road out that side. Just for that, I think it'll be easier for the trucks too. But again, that's, something you have to deal with later on down the road. I think the office warehouse in this area is great, especially if we can make it that larger site where they drop that down. I think it'll actually be beneficial to the city where we don't have a lot of that kind of space yet. And you could get concerned about losing some of your sales tax base with losing your regional commercial. But in this case, it's probably not the best area for regional commercial where you've got such high regional commercial areas just to the south. So I think it's probably an okay trade. Anyway, so from what I was hearing on that, most people seemed better with that because that was being dropped. So I think this is a potentially good situation, just my personal opinion. Thanks.
Thanks. I'm not going to close public comment. We'll leave it open for the next meeting, but I am going to open up for a motion to continue.
Commissioner Ryan, I motion to continue item number 6 this evening. Am I right? Are we on 6? I believe we're on 6. Item number 6 to November 18th. I was just looking over my notes.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. All right. I need to take a break for a minute. So,
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes,
Since I
you
won't
make-
be
make a
here on the
comment.
18th? Can I submit a recommendation today, even since I won't be here on the 18th? Is that possible to be on record?
Commissioner comments,
Okay.
do that during that? Okay. All right, so I need to take a 10-minute recess. Okay, let's get back. The next item is a public hearing for city code amendments to Title 19 Land Developer Code, chapters 1902 definitions, 1904 establishment of land use zones and map, 19.05 supplementary regulations, and 1909 off-street parking city initiated. Planning Director David Stroud.
And I will sit for this as I'll scroll through this particular file here. Yeah, so, again, quarterly, we try to bring you changes. So what we're looking at tonight, if we're going to go through these, give you maybe a summary. We've got interest for a facility, a business, which would be classified as a bar. The council has expressed interest in doing that with some controls. We don't have bar in our land use table, so we'd have to define bar. Just clarification on developer subdivider to coincide with state code. This will more clarify issues when a property owner of what's called a legal lot of record, an old county parcel wants to build a home, that would qualify them as developers. Subdividers would require to put in basic improvements. Adding the dwelling, since we now have internal accessory dwelling units, adding those to the land use table. We do have it written in the text, but we'll put this into the development table or land use table as well as being permitted uses. You see the MF10, MF14, 18, whatnot. Those are multifamily, but single family lots are still permitted in those zones. And again, going back to the code that was approved, IADUs are only allowed on single family lots. Additional standards, just clarification there, and other sections that certain uses, we have other standards since we got rid of conditional uses. Again, there are certain uses we've decided, hey, we want a few more requirements. This would reflect back to the bar, should that be approved, of having additional standards. Bar, again, permitted use in regional commercial zone. The office warehouse zone, taking the maximum height from 35 to 40 feet. What you see here, this would be one of those additional standards, which would be a bar would be located 600 feet from a residential zone. The nearest residential zone measured, I forgot to share here. Jump back. There, apologies. Additional standards for a bar, should one be located. These are a couple of additional requirements we would impose, basically just distance-wise and how we determine distance. Off-street parking requirements. I'll scroll down to them here. Requiring guest parking. We do put guest parking in a different part of the table, but we want to take it out of that table, put here with a few more standards. 0.25 stalls per unit, rear loaded type products. Just some clarification on where they go. Driveways don't count towards guest parking. Clarification on that. Also requiring, when you do guest parking, we want to have it at least within a walkable distance from wherever they're being a guest to. And so it'd be within 200 feet. Currently now you could put guest parking 500 feet away from, some townhomes, say, for instance. Certainly that would meet the code. We think it would be valuable to actually require distance, maximum distance for those. Talking about rear loaded products when there's aprons. Sometimes when you have townhomes and private drives, they do put aprons as a little extra more back out room on the garage before you actually get into the drive lane. And these sections here, these are just crossed out, but they're put elsewhere back in the code. We don't want to have the guest parking in two different locations. Then potentially in the future, you have to amend two more locations. This way, we just have to amend one should something happen in the future that requires an amendment. And then there are a few changes that came about for city open space, maintenance of open space, and Fred's actually going to briefly go through those.
Thanks, Dave. So this is reflective of a policy change that the city council put in place back in 2015, where, and you might recall kind of recently, where we were talking about open space and obligations to maintain open space and parts. And this clarifies those obligations related to open space and who will be responsible for maintaining those. So kind kind of just going through this. Yeah, it talks about privately owned open space shall be maintained by the property owner or the owners association as appropriate. And it kind of defines up at the top what it's applicable to, what open space it's applicable to. A lot of it is related to trails, regional trails, and also local trails. Talks about city standards and it talks about the rough proportionality test, which you might recall from our a memo I wrote related to exactions, and talked about how we can require open space obligations and we can require things, but it has to be roughly proportional to the impacts that are created by the development. And so this kind of goes through that a little bit and explains what rough proportionality means in this context. Talks about under trails here, number 5. It says that a developer may not receive open space credit and impact fee credits for the same trails installed. They can choose which to receive, but don't get to have both. So it just makes that clarification. And then it goes through and talks about the materials of trails, regional trails. Here talks about how lakeshore trails, and then it also talks about the trails along Redwood Road. The lakeshore trails shall meet the concrete standard and the city standards unless it's located on state land and concrete is prohibited. For trails along Redwood Road, clarifies that some of the trails will be concrete and some can be asphalt, and kind of differentiates between when they will be allowed to be asphalt and when they have to be concrete. And then talks about who installs landscaping improvements along trail corridors and who's responsible to maintain those. And then the last part of it talks about parking strips and who, when they count towards their open space and when they don't, and who's responsible for maintaining those. So that's what these statutory changes are. And again, they were drafted by Kevin Thurman, our city attorney. So I'm happy to answer questions about those if you have any, and Dave will answer questions about the other parts.
Okay, I will go ahead and open this up to the commission for questions. Commissioner Barton.
Just want to say thank you. I know it's a big job to change all this around and look at different codes from everybody else and here and there. So I appreciate you guys going through all that and getting it taken care of. I know it's a big thing. So thank you. Also, I love that Dave brought up the guest parking, because I don't know why in the world this has never been a requirement before, but I think that's fantastic because it doesn't make any sense to have it, 5 units down, 9 units, right? All the way
Yeah,
down. So
we have it, just nice to have it closed.
right.
Make it
Yes,
closer.
yes, yeah. So anyway, but I had nothing, no questions. That was it.
I need to open this up for public comment.
Oh,
I forgot. Your light was flashing, so go ahead.
Sorry, just one question on there. So on the table for permitted uses, when you did the internal dwelling units, ADUs, put permitted across the board, which wasn't a requirement of the state legislature. And I believe when you passed the actual amendment of the code to allow for those, or to get that definition, gave a lot size minimum. That's not the case.
No, the square footage is in state code, 6,000 square foot, right? But technically you may be able to put 6,000 square foot lots in MF10, for instance. Those still allow single family lots, but they still have to meet those standards of, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Well, have that open for question. The concern I had with having the grid system is, I know there's parts of the city that the city council said that's not going to be permitted with that. Will there be any confusion with that saying it's permitted in those zones, but it may not be because zones in an HOA that doesn't permit it or it's,
No, first off, you want to close the public hearing?
oh
If
yeah,
nobody
let's
else is
close this
here.
public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, and
You
then.
you are the public though, so.
Yes.
You know, so on the table here, it does have the asterisk of 3.
Okay.
You see on the chart, which does still reflect, it goes back to, there still is other standards of the code that you have to meet for the IADU.
As long as we're covered there, that's the one.
Yeah, you
thing.
still have to meet whatever the minimum state code standards are. The map that was adopted still does have the exemption areas.
All right. Then I'll go to Commissioner McConkey.
Yeah, just wanted to say thanks also, not just for this whole last several months, but like majority of the year. I don't know how much time has been spent on updating this. We just really appreciate that. I think that you guys have done a fantastic job. I think we'd all agree. Can we go to, I've just got 3 items here, 19.2.2B, where it talks about subdivider. Can you clarify that again? I just wrote down seems to include anyone who sells or rents a house being defined as being called a subdivider. Is that the intent?
You're up here on the screen under subdivider under B directly, and this is in the code now because it's in black.
Yes.
And directly or indirectly sells, lease, develops, or advertise for sale, lease or development, any interest lot, parcel, site, dwelling unit, or plat in a subdivision.
So that, to me, it says anyone directly or indirectly who sells or leases. So if I sell my house, then I'm a developer.
You're a subdivider.
I mean, excuse me, a subdivider.
By code, yes. Getting into legal jargon there. And I can't speak to what Kevin Thurman had in mind when he drafted this, but and I don't know if Fred can address it or not, but
Yeah, I don't know if I can address it directly, but I believe that the intention was when this was drafted to be very broad to, because subdividers have specific obligations related to city infrastructure. And so it was intended that it would be very broad.
Okay.
So, and I think that's still the intention is to keep it broad.
Something that I'm not understanding which is totally fine.
Yeah, so a subdivider has obligations to, for example, install sidewalks and curbs and road improvements and to ensure that there's easements for water and other things and that there's water connections and sewer connections. And so those are kind of the obligations to go along with that. Now, if you're a property owner and you already have a house, someone's already taken care of all those things. And so you're not going to have those additional obligations unless you haven't taken care of those. And then you would have those probably obligations, which is why I say I think it was intended to be very broad.
Okay. Thank you. In 19.4.8, I think there was had a question on the verbiage for dwelling, comma.
which one?
Maybe, I don't know. I had internal dwelling unit. Or it was number 8.
190408, what's on the screen now?
Internal accessory unit. Huh. I don't know. My question was, should we be using the verbiage dwelling, comma, internal dwelling unit to maintain uniformity with the IADU ordinance and definition? But maybe I was drinking something. I don't really know. Well, forget that one. The last one is the reference made in 19.9.5, number 11, 1909-05. Number 11, reference is made to 2-family dwellings. Do we need to clarify the difference between a 2-family dwelling and an IADU? Or has that already been?
It's already elsewhere.
Clarified.
2 families, your duplex or a twin home, typically.
Okay. And
But
that's,
Yeah, in the I-80 ordinance, it's a home, a single family home with an I-80 is still considered to be a single
Single
family.
family,
dwelling.
okay, that's right. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Was that everything?
That's all.
Commissioner Kilgore.
I was wondering, are bars restricted by the state to only be in RC zones?
I didn't catch the first part.
Sorry, are bars restricted
Bars.
by the state to only be in RC zones?
By the state? No. The state has standards of bars being from schools, public gathering places.
Churches.
I actually, no, I don't think churches are in there. Is it churches? Okay.
They call them community
Yeah,
locations.
community locations, yeah. And so the particular applicant we have that wants to come in has a location they would like to go. We had a little work session or review with the council a few months back on this. And we looked at the location they were interested in and looked to the nearest, residential area. There weren't any churches, there weren't any schools. And that's where the distance of 600 feet, and I want to say there's 600 feet in state code for some items as well. But it was determined that that would be the minimum distance.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I asked is I wonder why we're not allowing it in like neighborhood community or what's the other one?
Well,
CC.
Yeah, if you're in neighborhood commercial, generally those are going to be smaller, smaller zoned areas. You don't have most likely as much acreage. Most likely you're going to be closer to residential at that point anyway. There was a second location, another business wanted to go in community commercial. We're not proposing community commercial, but they're only, 400 feet from nearest residential area. So it wouldn't have worked anyway, should the 600 feet be what is approved by the council.
Oh, I see. Yeah, well, just because a lot of cities or communities consider, the local bar, drinking area, the drinking hole, the local pub, that kind of thing is usually right in residential. So I know that our state may not necessarily have the same kind of values as that, but I just wondering, do we need to restrict it to regional commercial or can it be allowed and where it meets the other standards as well, the distance from residences, if it was allowed in neighborhood commercial and community commercial, because then it's more like, it could function more like as a pub and such, but I don't know if that's necessarily something that we don't want.
Yeah, I think we've kind of taken the view, let's start small and go from there.
Okay. And then what, so this is 19.19.09. I'm not even sure what that is. I was wondering what caused the necessity for that, and I'm not sure what I'm asking.
Which specific part of that?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Oh, maybe it's, boy. What caused the necessity for 19.19.09? 19 point. Oh, it's page 38, sorry. Okay. Try to. All right. 19 point. When I read it, I thought it was like, well, why are we putting this in there? But now I can't remember. Okay. And then on 2B, in that same page, it says, the intent of the city council is to apply this policy for future development in the city as of December 1st, 2015. Is that the correct?
Yeah, that's what Kevin was saying, was 2015 is when the city council came up with the policy that they wanted owners associations to maintain landscaping adjacent to trails that are in their areas. And so I think that's the policy that this is referring to. And it wasn't intended to be retroactive. And that's, I think what that is aimed at, is to say, we're not holding developers who did development prior to that time we're not going to go after them and say you have the same obligations as developers do after that date.
Okay, so it's kind of like it's like a grandfather type of thing. still.
Correct.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Get it. And then, oh, I think there's just maybe it's a typo on, what's that, page 41. 41. Sorry, it's page 41 in the big packet. So in 7BI. So it's parks and open spaces, paragraph B or 7B, and then the first one says the open space or park is public. Instead of, it's written as are public, but it should be is public. Sorry, just a small typo. I think.
I think
Is it,
you're
wait,
right.
the open space,
I think you're right.
what? Well, no, because open space or park, it's one or the other, so it's singular. No, it would be they if it's an and, but if it's an or, then it's individual. So in fact, just below it, there's another similar sentence. Yeah, just below it is a similar sentence that says it is.
I
So
think
it's
it
just
is a typo. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's it. For me.
Any other comments from the commission?
Commissioner Wagstaff has a comment.
Okay. I'll let Commissioner Wagstaff go and then Commissioner Ryan.
Okay. So the one that I really don't like is the bars, the 600 feet, as well as the distance. And it's the arbitrary numbers that I have a hard time with. I mean, we went through this with storage units, we being like a half mile away from our storage unit. We went the industrial being 30,000 square feet, and these numbers are just arbitrary. And when I look at the city and I think about, and I understand we're in Utah County, but at the same time, I look at a place that I feel like would be appropriate for a bar, and I think, all right, Chubby's, but we're still across the street from, it's multifamily residential, but it's still residential, or even Tenny's, but it's still too close for residential, or like Costa Vida, and it's only 140 feet from Delmar Meadows, but there's a huge divider there of Redwood Road. And so I don't see any reason for that 600 square feet. I think that's the reason for zoning, is to be able to avoid some of those arbitrary numbers, because I don't see any reason why, like where Seven Brothers or Costa Vida couldn't be a bar. It's not really close to those residential zones. There's that huge buffer there. And like we already have the restrictions with the schools and the churches. And so if we eliminate the schools, the churches plus 600 square feet from any residential, basically all the city's saying is we don't want any bars in the city. And so, and if that's what they want to do or say, then I guess that's up to the city council and whatever. But the arbitrary number, when you measure 600 feet off any of those locations, doesn't work. That's everything I have on that, though.
Thanks, Commissioner Wagstaff. Commissioner Ryan, or wait a sec, Community Development. Did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, although the number 600 feet distance requirement may appear to be arbitrary, is not necessarily. There have been many communities that have put in place a distance separation between various types of uses, including sexual oriented businesses or heavy industrial, or there's a lot of different things. So these types of numbers required distance have been used by many cities in their zoning codes.
Yeah, and I just think zoning is a more appropriate way to address that than feet. And like I say, that Costa Vida is kind of your prime example. I don't see any reason why Delmar Meadows should affect the uses at Costa Vida across Redwood Road or over by Costco, because they're, when you're talking property lines. So I know there are 600 square feet for like schools and churches, but if there's especially a big buffer like that, I don't see any reason to block those.
Commissioner Ryan.
I appreciate Commissioner Wagstaff's comments. What he said, I'd like to echo. I had some of those similar concerns and similar with Commissioner Kilgore as well in his line of questioning around why he put it in regional commercial. To me, it didn't quite make sense. But I appreciate the discussion this evening. I did have a quick question in terms of if it's just not jargon that I'm familiar with, and I wanted to make sure I understand what it's saying. It's under 5 trails towards the end of the document. So 5B III, there's an exception under number 1. And it says the developer owners association or property owner may be required to maintain the trail if the city, and then I didn't quite understand what this means, through an arm's length negotiation with the developer. I'd just like some insight on what that means.
I'm trying to just track to where you're going. So
It's on the screen, Fred.
Sorry, Fred, I didn't mean to go too
So
fast
it's
there.
the exception, the
So,
developer.
so first of all, exceptions are always,
Yeah, I
hate
think I've
'em.
got it. I'm here now. So it says, the developer, owners association and or property owner may be required to maintain the trail if the city, through an arm's length negotiation with the developer, provides additional consideration to the developer that is memorialized through a recordable instrument such as development agreement, reimbursement agreement, and or plat note. This has to do with that rough proportionality that we were talking about previously and that we've talked about, and just making sure that we're the obligations that we're imposing upon a developer are roughly proportional to the impacts that they make. And if we want them to do more than what is roughly proportional, then we need to compensate them for that. They need consideration.
so is that what that clause is then, that's set off by the commas through an arm's length negotiation with the developer? I mean,
Yes,
Okay. And that's properly understood in legalese and in circles, like we know what this means to each other?
yes. Yeah, so in other words, it's bargained for, it's negotiated in a, you know, they don't have to agree to it.
Yeah.
If we want it and we want to force them to, we can't force them to do it because it's too much. But if they're willing to do it, we can pay them to do it if both parties are willing. So for certain improvements, we can require them as, you know, a proportional impact, proportional to the impacts that they're creating. But for certain obligations, we can't require certain obligations. Those would be above and beyond. And so this requires us to negotiate if we want more.
So do you feel like this clause is in favor of the city or in favor of a developer?
I think it's in favor of both because I think it allows the city to get what it wants as long as the developer is in agreement. And it also provides that a developer can say, no, I don't want to agree to that. The city needs to take this, and the city can't force the developer to do it. So I think it actually favors both parties.
Okay. Appreciate the background and additional understanding. And then just to circle back on the bars and regional commercial, could Director Stroud, could you just give us a little more background as to why RC was chosen above some of the others that were mentioned that in my mind more naturally come to mind as where we would want?
It hinges on the location that this future user would like to go. And in discussion with city council, they gave the direction that would be in the regional commercial zone. Certainly, like I said, you know, down the road, certainly, you know, if it's approved just in regional commercial, certainly down the road, the door's open to say, well, could it be appropriate in others, as long as you still have, assuming there's still, you know, some separation requirements from residential or those other uses.
So, and then my follow-up question to that is, are there any concerns maybe from Ken or Doug, if you'd like to chime in, like putting that into a regional commercial and having it standardized there, would that shoot us in the foot for other regional commercial developments that would be, you know, not necessarily opposed, but would look differently? Let's say that bar is there first, right into that thing, and they go, oh, well, gosh, like we can't use this piece of property now. We don't want to use this piece of property. We don't want the image around what we're trying to bring in here. Do we have any concerns with that?
I mean, sir, I'll give my 2 cents and Doug can then chime in. Certainly that could be a factor of a business, but it could be a factor of any business. I suspect there's people that probably don't go to Olive Garden because they serve wine there. It just may not be something they want to be around or have kids exposed to, whatever it may, I, don't know. You could probably sit and, think of a bunch of different scenarios that could happen. Yeah, some may be more likely than others, but is that how we would look at, doing a zone change? Probably not, in my mind anyway,
Thanks. Any thoughts?
at least for this particular use.
I would concur with what Dave just said. 600 feet is not an unusual number, and zoning is not an unusual area. For example, Las Vegas has the exact same scenario of all cities, 600 feet from all three of those entities, and it has to be specific zones associated with alcohol sales, even in a convenience store. So.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. We'll do Commissioner Barton and then Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Barton.
Most of my questions were answered. I just had a question real quick for Ken when it said other cities do this, but I feel like our city layout is incredibly different than most cities. So sometimes when we bring up the city thing, I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense because this is Saratoga Springs and this is Lehigh or this is Pleasant Grove, right? And so sometimes when we say that, we're like, well, we are set up differently. We are skinny and long, right? And so I agree with Commissioner Wagstaff when he talks about that and how Commissioner Ryan was bringing that up. It just, I get some of the things that you're saying, but on the other hand, I think we need to look at it a little bit. I don't know, but that's just my comments on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Barton. Commissioner Kilgore.
Okay, so I want to go back to that arm's length thing. So if we require them, then if we require something from the applicant or developer, then that's not a negotiation. If we want to negotiate about things, then that would just be a negotiation. So why does it have to say arm's length? What is that? Why is that specific? Why not just negotiation?
I think sometimes an arm's length suggests that both the parties are in equal position in terms of authority and power. And so I think that's what that is.
So if you didn't have arm's length in there, it implies that both parties are not on equal footing?
It could mean that we're trying to compel something. This actually, in this instance, I think this actually is more protective of the developer than the city. Because if, the developer may think, if it didn't say arm's length, they may think that they're obligated because the city is requesting something. Whereas because it says arm's length, it means that they know that they're not obligated to.
So in all the areas that in the code that has negotiation in there, but does not say arm's length, it just assumes that someone's got more power?
I can't answer that question. I don't know.
I'm just asking for consistency's sake.
Sorry, I don't even know if it's in there elsewhere. So I don't know.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Ryan.
Sorry. So, and I hate to be a stickler on this, but it essentially says the same thing without that weirdo clause in there, right? Basically says this, the developer owners association property owner may, so there's already your may, like that. It's not a requirement. It's not a shall. And then it says, as long as the city provides additional consideration, like there's your arm's length, whatever going to be going back and forth. I just hate that we're putting in some of this descriptive language that's like a spit and a handshake or whatever, or equal ground or whatever it may be. Like, I have no idea what that means. And if I was a lawyer and I was the developer, I would go after this. And if I felt like my client was treated unfairly, like I would go after this. I would demand that the city define for me what an arm's length negotiation is. And if it's standard jargon, like I felt comfortable, Fred, after your explanation that it's standard in its use and people would understand. I guess I can appreciate that, but I think the exception clause says the same thing without being set off by those two commas. And I'll get off my little soapbox.
Okay, any other comments from the commission? The only thing I was going to say about the bar that's come up is this is a definition for a bar, and I was trying to look for in the code for food service because I think there's an additional definition for food service establishments and serving alcohol, but I can't seem to locate it.
In the city code?
Yeah, in the city code.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we took that out, but remember, I don't know, a year and a half ago, we kind of pared down restaurants and, made some changes there. We brought it down to 2, basically takeout or drive-through or restaurant, I think is what we have. Maybe we did something with that. I just don't recall.
I mean, from the definition I'm reading it, it's like if it's the main purpose is a bar, this applies. But if it's a restaurant like Olive Garden, are we going to prevent them from serving alcohol because they're?
No, because under the definition here, we make the distinction that the majority of their sales comes from alcohol. Olive Garden does not
Okay,
fall.
so
into
it would
that.
it would fall under a different classification then.
Just Olive Garden just falls under a restaurant.
Okay. All right. If there's no other comments from the commission, I'll open it up for a motion. Commissioner Kilgore, go
Sorry,
ahead.
one more question. So I was in Brooklyn a month ago, and my nephew lives in a brownstone. And so within walking distance, there's all these bars and cocktails and everything. And he said that the latest trend in New York City now is tapas and cocktails. And so the revenue comes from tapas, which is food, and also from cocktails. So, and it was really close to their apartment. Everyone goes there. It's a watering hole. So I guess I'm anticipating the answer is that we'll deal with that when we get to that point. But I'm just wondering, is that a good way to really distinguish, an eatery or a place where alcohol is served, but at the same time might be more from alcohol, or even though it's a food establishment, they do takeout. So I'm just wondering if that's going to pose a problem for us in the future, if that trend comes here.
Yeah, well, based on our definition, and legal can correct me if I misspeak.
Yeah.
If 50% or more of their receipts come from alcohol, it's a bar. They would have to then follow these bar standards.
Okay.
Now, to the use in Brooklyn, are you suggesting we add that to our code?
No, I'm just
okay.
wondering if that's how we're defining it. I mean, if the trend changes like that, just wondering if that's necessary. I mean, I guess it's kind of similar to that 600-foot thing. I'm just wondering if that's if that's just, again, we'll probably cross that bridge when we get there, but I'm just saying that is already happening in a lot of places, and it's kind of that line is blurred. But I guess if we're just simply defining it by receipts, then I guess it's pretty clear. Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner, could I just note that the state also distinguishes, they issue different types of licenses. They've got a tavern license that is kind of similar to what the bar is. They also have restaurant licenses and other kinds of licenses, and they also differentiate between sales of food versus sales of alcohol. So, and we're updating Title V soon as well. It won't come before the Planning Commission because it's not a land use issue, but the City Council will be updating Title V related to liquor licenses. And in the future, just like you have indicated, we probably will deal with something like this in the future. But right now, it's only one bar that's wanting to come in. It's about time. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but
well, yeah, I guess it just seems, I mean, of course we write code that we don't have when there's an application, or so I understand that part, but it just seems like we're always kind of tailoring it towards a particular developer, as opposed to thinking, okay, so how do we want to consider this as far as needs of the community? And that's where I just feel like, okay, so just regional commercial, or can we already consider neighborhood commercial, community commercial? Because that's a lot of times where watering holes tend to be. But again, that's where I was asking, does the state have a restriction? And if the state has a restriction, I totally understand that. That's our state. But if not, then I'm just wondering, do we just want to tailor it to the developer each time? It was kind of like that one rezone request for that coffee shop. We're doing that just for that one developer, and then they found someplace else. So I don't know. It just seems like a little bit narrowly tailored. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Being conservative like that is not necessarily a bad thing. But anyway, just want to bring it up.
Okay, I will open it up for motion.
This Commissioner Ryan, based on the evidence and explanations received today and the discussion this evening, I move forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed amendments to Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated October 21st, 2021.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Anderson. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
So we have one nay vote, and Commissioner Wagstaff, would you like to explain why you voted against the motion?
I don't see any, going back to Costa Vida again, I don't see any reason why that location shouldn't be able to have a bar. You're not close to a school, you're not close to a church, you're not close to residential. I mean, I think our zoning could stop a bar, but I don't think just because that's 140 feet from a house, but it's a significant 140 feet. So that's my only thing is, I don't think that the measurement is the best way to manage that. I would love to see an About Time though, that they have good food.
When it comes to state, do they have a 600-foot residential? It's just church and school.
It's not zone specific. It's community locations, meaning a church, a playground, a park.
Community, like you said before, community, okay.
Which is 600 feet. So that's kind of where that basis of that 600 foot came from. It's already being used for a similar determination.
For the number kind of.
So we use the same one for residential.
And I might just add too, I think there might even, and this would get, I guess, maybe too down into the weeds, but if there was even a clause in there for, unless it's separated by a major collector road or X amount, something like that. But the way it is now, you're going to eliminate all of, basically the majority, if not all of the commercial, if residential goes in first.
All right, next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Do we have any corrections that we need to turn in on the minutes? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for both September 23rd and September 30th.
I move to approve the minutes for the Planning Commission meetings on the 23rd of September 2021, and also for the Planning Commission meeting on 30th of September 2021.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Commissioner Barton. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes. Commissioner comments. I believe Commissioner Anderson want to make a comment because he's not going to be here on the November 18th about the Timpanogos.
I rescind those comments.
Okay.
I think there's more information to be had before those recommendations should be given. So
You
since
can't.
there's pending information still that I don't have,
All right.
I'll rescind it.
I will, if you would like, you can email me or Director Stroud, and we will make sure your comments get read in the meeting if you're not able to attend.
Thank you. I will be at the night.
I do have
Okay.
a quick question.
Yes, Commissioner Wagstaff.
So on that project, do you know, Director Stroud, if they're planning on piping the canal there?
Yeah, the canal would be piped, and we do have some preliminary communication back from Hal Hansen, Alan Luce, the Welby Jacob Canal's engineer.
Right.
They have initially expressed concern about a 32-foot wall below a canal. The canal would be piped, but they do have reservation on that. So that's one of the things that, if the variances are granted, there's 3 variances they're going to request. The wall height being one of them. Should that be approved? Obviously that's information you should probably have before you make your decision.
We had a comment from the engineer, Dan.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. So with the pipe, part of what Welby Jacobs engineer said is that they have concerns with not just piping or not piping, but the type of pipe used, and getting into the differences between RCP pipe and having those joints that can leak, and a solid pipe like a fused HDPE pipe that there's no joints anywhere, no way for any leakage. And so they were, that was kind of one of their concerns, and that was part of the possible solution that they produce.
Okay.
Thank you. I know we've had a lot of problems with the canal through Harvest Hills. My grandpa's the water master on that canal, and it's just been kind of a nightmare through the residential part. And so I just wanted to make sure that they weren't going to try and do a 30-foot wall there without piping it. So that's great. Thanks.
I had a question about the meeting on the 9th. That's not going to be here. It's going to be the Public Safety Building?
No, it's at Talon's Cove.
Talon's Cove.
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to bring that up, so thank you.
Any
I-
other
Oh,
comments?
sorry. I just had a quick request. If at all possible, I'd love to be able to zoom in because I will be gone for work obligations that night, but would love to be able to Zoom if possible.
Okay, I will contact Owen to see if we have that capability there.
Thank you.
Worst case, I suspect maybe by phone or something. I don't know
Yeah,
if they
and
have the audio visual there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm bummed I'm missing it. So if I could chime or listen in one way or another, I would be more than willing to do that.
Director's report.
You checked off the one. The other one would be the next PC meeting is November 18. That will be the sole meeting in November due to the Thanksgiving holiday was your fourth Thursday, and we're not going to be here, and I suspect you wouldn't either. So we will have the one meeting on the 18th. December, we have one meeting as well in December, as well. December 9th would be the Lone Planning Commission as well. Same as City Council, Lone City Council meeting on December 7th. This week, we had a new Planner One start. Kendall is here. So I'd like to have Kendall, he's sat patiently to see what's in store for him at Planning Commission. So I'd just like to have him come up and introduce himself and go from there.
Kendall Black, I came from Bountiful. I was the code enforcement officer and assistant planner there. I live in Harvest Hills, and I just wanted to true story. And then, yeah, I was just excited, wanted to work in a work on stuff that I would actually profit from rather than in Bountiful where I do all these cool things and then I go home and never see it. So.
And we cut his commute time down quite a bit too.
39 minutes,
Yes.
60.
Yes, you're helping save the environment. I believe Ken had a comment.
Yeah, I just also wanted to let you know and invite you in case you are interested in participating with us in our kickoff meeting for the general plan update, which will be on next Thursday, November 4th at 3:00 in this room. We will want to involve you more at other stages of that update process, but this will be our kickoff with the consultants and kind of plotting out our plan of action and such. So you're welcome to join us at that time if you'd like.
And what time was it again? Sorry, I missed it.
3:00 in this room on the 4th.
All right, do we need to go into a closed session this evening?
We do not.
Okay, if that's all we have, we'll stand adjourned until the 9th for the joint meeting with the city council at Talon's Cove.